All right, welcome. Let me straighten up. Okay, so welcome to today, the show. Welcome to the show. So I'm going to start. I have a few things I'm going to talk about here. Hopefully, this is all coming through clear. I guess first thing I'm going to say is I see someone mention it in the chat, so I'm pretty sad to hear that Jerry French passed away because he was always commenting on our videos, and I saw that tweet. So very unfortunate. So my condolences to his family. I'm going to talk about a couple things today. First thing, so some people might have seen the I don't know where this came up, where this came from, but I'm into it. Like, someone just started doing it. I think everyone else picked up on it. Everyone started calling Bitcoin. They started spelling Bitcoin with the C capitalized. I'm into this. And for those of you that don't know, it was originally when all the drama that happened with Craig Wright originally started. There was a blog post of his from 2009 where he capitalized the C in Bitcoin, and that was used as proof that he was a fraud. But most people actually don't know that if you go back to the original code, so Bitcoin was actually spelled that way. So I think it's a cool way to give a homage to the fact that all Bitcoin SV is trying to do is be the Bitcoin with a capital C. You know what I'm saying? So give me 1 second here. Sorry. All right. So with all that said, I encourage people to actually go back and look at the code. So I started on something a long time ago that I never finished. I got like a half hour of audio recorded. I was trying to go through from the original code on and just document every single code change that has happened since the start of Bitcoin. I will eventually do that. It took a long time. And unfortunately it's a lot of effort. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of changes that were made. And it's hard to figure out which ones were protocol changes, which ones were, just like performance changes that was a good thing. But I want to maybe also clarify something about the protocol, right? So if you go back to looking at Bitcoin version 0.1.3, for example, so 0.1.3 is all that I can find going back. It's the earliest version that someone had uploaded to GitHub. I haven't been able to find an earlier version, but it's probably out there somewhere. With all that said, what I see a lot of people, I think a lot of them are just trolling, or they're trying to get a reaction, but they say, like, well, what is the protocol? The protocol isn't defined. Okay, well, there's something very simple that you can define the protocol as. Okay, and this is what no one wants to admit, is if a transaction was created on January 1st or January 10th of 2009, and it was signed, if it cannot be broadcast to the network today, that means the protocol has changed. Does that make sense? So it's very straightforward. So everyone goes like, well, they try to argue like what the protocol is, what the protocol isn't. But it's pretty straightforward that if I can broadcast a transaction that was signed on January 10th, 2009, then the protocol has remained the same since January 10th, 2009. If I can't do that, then that's a problem. So that would be an example if I made a transaction with an opcode, for example, that is disabled on the BTC network or the BCH network, then that would be a protocol. Something is different about the underlying network, and therefore it maybe if I had the copyright, I could enforce the fact that it's no longer Bitcoin, hypothetically. Someone said 0.1.0 is in here, but okay, it might be in here. Okay, it's been a while since I did this. We'll look through this, but not important. So next thing I want to talk about is the revolutionary new Paymail system. Okay. Let me think about how I can show this to you. I'm going to keep muting myself. I keep coughing and sneezing, so I'm going to mute myself. And so that's why I keep going dark. So let's see. I don't want to show you any of my own personal information here. That's why I'm just getting it set up. But let's see. All right, here's what we're going to do, okay? Sorry guys, just give me 1 second. Everyone's gonna bitch about this one because everyone says, well, Connor, you gotta shorten the videos, you gotta do all sort of stuff, blah, blah, blah. And to be honest with you, I don't know if I care. Like, I'm not here to get YouTube famous. I'm not here to, I just do this because I think it's valuable and I want people to be able to see, I want people to understand what I'm trying to understand. And for some, if that's not good enough, then so be it. So, all right, here's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to pull this over like this. So now you can see on the left-hand side of my screen. So Paymail. All right, so Paymail is essentially a wallet spec. So if I go to bsvalias.org, I believe. And I gotta turn off my AC. Alright, so if I go to bsvalias.org, we can actually see the spec for what Paymail is. Okay, so it's very straightforward. So the whole idea is to make it so that you no longer have these long, complicated addresses. And we instead are left with Paymail addresses. So you have similar to an email address, right? So if I have connor@gmail.com, we're trying to make BitCoin addresses as simple to use as email addresses. Now, MoneyButton helped develop this spec, and they were the first people to implement the Paymail spec. So if you have on NPM, you can get Paymail, you can find it on GitHub. So anyone could build this. So that's something I think a lot of people misunderstood, is anyone can set up a domain and a Paymail at the domain. So I could have Connor@bitcoinandbeyond.com, for example, right? So this is pretty straightforward, like the idea around it. Now, if you want to read, again, bsvalias.org, you can read the spec itself and you can figure out, well, how can I implement this myself? But I'm going to talk briefly here about MoneyButton itself, okay? So I'm going to pull up this on the left side of my screen here. You're going to be able to see, well, okay, I want to create a new Paymail, okay? So if you have a MoneyButton account, you can go to your settings in the top right, and you can come over here and you can say, I want to create a Paymail, okay? Now, let's see. I'm going to create something that no one has right now, and then so you can see the concept of me creating a Paymail. So let's say let's see, what's a good one? So, fartpants@moneybutton.com. So that's available. Oh, wow. Someone has fartpants@moneybutton.com on sale for $10 million. So we're gonna not do that. Okay. Let's see, what is on my desk? Let's see. Coca-Cola. So someone got that one. That's good. Coca-Cola 2. So I could buy. People have bought up all the domains, I think. I'm really bad with coming up with some names here, but I'll just come up with original Bitcoin is best Bitcoin. All right. So no one's bought original Bitcoin is best Bitcoin at moneybutton.com. Okay. So now I can pay $1 and purchase that money button. That Paymail. So you can see here, so Money Button has essentially created a market of Paymails. So I bought the Paymail. I can see it in my Paymails section. So I can come over here and look at all my Paymails that I own. And you can see I have a default Paymail. All right. Now, give me 1 second here. All right. So I own a few different Paymails, for example. I'm trying to keep my my stuff here separate. So, perfect example here. Let's say one of you guys want to buy Satoshi Nakamoto at Paymail at moneybutton.com. Okay. So I own this one. Believe it or not, I own this one. I was one of the first people to get this one. I was the first person to get this one. And I put it on sale for $50,000. Okay, I offered it to Craig Wright, but he never got back to me on it. So I thought, well, I don't need this. I don't really need Satoshi Nakamoto at moneybutton.com. But originally I had it for like $1 million. But now what I've seen is people are actually selling these things for thousands of dollars. And you might ask the question, like, why are people actually buying these things? Why are they selling these things? I'm going to get to that in a minute, okay? But basically, if someone were to come over here and pay $50,000 for Satoshi Nakamoto at moneybutton.com, I would receive 70% of that, and then MoneyButton would receive the other 30% of that, okay? So what MoneyButton has essentially created is a peer-to-peer domain sale system. And when they opened it to the wild, every single one of them was $1, and now anyone can buy them and sell them at will. Now, some of these, like I said, have been selling for a crazy amount of money, believe it or not. And you're probably like, well, why would I want to pay $50,000 for Satoshi Nakamoto at moneybutton.com? And maybe even a better question would be like, why would I? Let's see, how much is Satoshi? Okay, so 5,000. Let's see. Let's find a really expensive one here. I don't know. There's a lot of big. So I think even like. People are of course selling. Okay, so CSW. Someone has decided to sell CSW at moneybutton.com for $2 million. Okay, so you're probably like, wow, this is kind of crazy, right? So a lot of people got upset originally, especially. I won't name names, but they got really upset that MoneyButton did this. They're like, well, they were likening it to an ICO. It was kind of ridiculous. Like pretty much what MoneyButton did is they said they took 10. They said they took 10 names off the market, which is reasonable, I think, for developing it. And then they let every other name out in the wild for $1. Okay? Now, I'm going to back up, and I've already skipped over a few different things here. Okay? I'm going to get to a lot of the things people are already saying. Okay? Now, the first thing I want to mention is if you're a wallet, there is not a good way to monetize your wallet today. Okay? It doesn't happen. Like, no one has done it. No one will do it. People will do it, but as far as you can tell in the last 10 years, no one's figured out a way to monetize a wallet. Okay? Now, the easiest way you could probably imagine would be to monetize a wallet would be to take a percentage of a transaction fee, right? Now, that's definitely one way to monetize your wallet. Now, MoneyButton, this is probably the first instance of like, they have a wallet, they've created a service with their wallet, and now they're generating revenue from this service. Okay? So this is really important. I want to just preface by saying, and this is just the beginning of what they're trying to do. What they've created here is an identity system. There's a lot of things I need to get to around why this is important. But they've created an identity system where the identities are for sale. So they've implemented a free marketplace of identities, and they get a cut of all the sales of the identities, which is genius, right? And they get the initial dollar for, they get the initial dollar for every Paymail that's registered, right? Now, Okay, so whoever owns CSW at moneybutton.com just lowered the price now to 500 grand. So they must be watching this. They've lowered the price. So they saw my 50 grand, I guess, and they said, wow, maybe 2 million was pushing it, right? So I got a little distracted. They're banning that guy. But okay, so identity, right? So well, I guess the whole thing about the wallet being monetized, it's really important. I think it's extremely important. I think it's very important that wallets are going to have to find ways to monetize in the future. They can't just be like in the case of, Handcash and MoneyButton, they have investments, right? So that they're expected to turn a profit at some point if the investor is good, unless the investor is just doing it out of the goodwill of their own heart, right? So you're probably wondering, like, well, okay, so they've created this now. Why is this useful? So first things first, the ability to have identity is really important. So and this is of course something that has been touched on a lot by people like Craig, by people like whoever else, is, well, the ownership of a key doesn't prove identity, right? So the whole idea, especially that can't hold up in law. It shouldn't hold up in law. That all because I own a key doesn't mean I it's mine. If I steal your car keys, it doesn't mean your car is mine, right? That would be ridiculous. So the way to implement identity would be the same way that we already have identity, right? In the case of if you ever signed a contract, like an electronic contract, if you ever bought a house, for example, there is existing law to cover the fact that, okay, well, you have an identity that's linked to your email account, and that identity signs the contract, and that's seen as a valid signature, okay? So this is a way to actually implement a valid signature tied to identity. Because every time you make a transaction, of course, you're producing a signature. So we now have the first instance, the first protocol of identity being linked to Bitcoin, okay? So, well, your next question is like, well, if I can create a Paymail at any domain, then why would MoneyButton be valuable? Right? Why would my, domain at MoneyButton be valuable? There's a few reasons, okay? Now, the first would be, okay, let's assume that MoneyButton becomes the Google of the future. So it'd be pretty nice to own the Connor@Gmail equivalent, right? I mean, that's pretty nice. That would be pretty nice, because it also means that any service that Google authenticates with, that is now my identity. So I can log into any service with just that simple identity. But it also means that, so in the case of, like, well, if I own, A at moneybutton.com, that's pretty easy to remember, right? So if identity is starting to be tied to money, probably an easy to remember identity would be more valuable than a lesser known identity, or I guess less easy to remember identity. But I'm missing a few things here. So this is just MoneyButton's implementation. I think this is genius. I think the whole idea of selling and buying these things is genius. And I'll address one small thing, which is a lot of people getting upset that MoneyButton didn't preserve names of, like, special people on Twitter or whatever. Like, I'm sorry. Now, I will say that the one criticism I could leverage was, I think it would have been fair, since there's different time zones in effect. I think the people that were upset were the people that were in the time zone that maybe they were sleeping when this first happened. And I think a lot of people understood, oh, wow, I could buy up a lot of these for $1, and if I'm right about the future value of them, I can make a lot of money. Now, I don't think the market has found the market for these things. I've seen names, I know personally of a name that went for $500, like the day it happened. Another name that went for $130. These are just first names, for example, right? I've heard of people that have sold these things for over $1,000. I don't know what the name was, right? So really, this is a very speculative market. Whether these things are actually worth what they are, I don't know. Now, I decided for Satoshi Nakamoto, I thought $50,000. I want to see if anyone thinks that Satoshi Nakamoto at moneybutton.com is worth $50,000. And I'm sure that MoneyButton will be pretty happy, if they can take 30% of this right here, right? So you let me know by paying this. So I look forward to receiving $50,000 anytime soon if anyone wants to buy Satoshi Nakamoto at moneybutton.com. Because there is a chance, hypothetically, that this becomes worth millions of dollars. I don't know. I have no idea. So I'll address the next point of, and I guess I'll even just, I guess, give me 1 second. I'll show you why Paymail is great in the first place. I haven't even showed you that yet before I move on to a more general thing, which is, so I can show you this screen at least. So this is my MoneyButton account right now, right? So you can see my default is actually Connor at moneybutton.com. I own Bitcoin and Beyond at moneybutton.com, and I own a lot of other ones. But so the best part about this is I can now say, so if someone wants to put their, the first person to put their Paymail into the chat, I'll send you $1, right? And I'll show you just how nice Paymail can be. Okay, actually, I think someone already did. Someone said that they were sup at moneybutton.com. Okay, so now I can actually just send money to just an email address, or the equivalent of an email address. Okay, it's really quite straightforward. Now, so sorry, everyone else lost. I apologize. So this is great. I mean, in my opinion, this is great. And what all the wallets have decided is they're all going to respect this. So eventually there will be a Handcash.io domain, and from MoneyButton I'll be able to send to the Handcash domain. From the Handcash domain I'll be able to send to the MoneyButton domain, and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty great. Now, okay, so I guess I'll address the next question, which is, okay, well, if I can just create, if any domain can have this, then what's the point? Okay. Well, there's a few things. Okay, so while MoneyButton and Handcash have decided, yes, I'm going to allow you to send from each to each other, you have a service right now that has claimed, because of the way MoneyButton handled the sales of the handles, which is so ridiculous to me, but this is what the reality of it is. Because of that, they're not going to allow people to send to at MoneyButton. So there's potentially a future where these things aren't actually as interoperable as we want them to be, right? I would hope they would be, but now here's, and let me mention one more thing. I apologize. Everyone that had you start with a MoneyButton ID. So my MoneyButton ID is a 3-digit number. I got for free that 3-digit number at moneybutton.com. So a lot of just immaturity, I thought, in the response to how MoneyButton handled it. I think they handled it the most fair way possible, and I think they handled it in a non-crony capitalist way. And what I mean by that is they didn't reserve handles for people just because they had been involved in the Bitcoin society. Okay, they just let them all on a free market. So I had no problems with the way they did it. Now, I'm gonna help you understand why this solves the onboarding problem. Now, of course, it's going to take work to solve the onboarding problem, but this is really quite simple. Now, we now have a spec and a protocol to tie email addresses to a Bitcoin wallet. Okay? Do you understand this? Which means, I mean, I'll let you linger on that for a second. Think through that a little bit, okay? Now, MoneyButton is implementing an identity and authentication service. Okay? They already have implemented a authentication service. And MoneyButton, again, it's just one of many people trying to do this stuff. But so this means that if I log into any site in Chrome, I'm logged in on MoneyButton. I can, MoneyButton recognizes that. It uses OAuth. And then I can just use the MoneyButton without having to log in on each site that MoneyButton is on. That's the same with Google, right? Google has, I can just say log in with Google. I authenticate with Google. Now, my Google ID is a Gmail. Okay? So you understand this yet? So theoretically, we already have existing companies that can tie Bitcoin wallets to existing accounts. We have now a spec and a protocol for large companies that currently deal with email addresses to tie the identity of their users to a Bitcoin wallet, which means that money can be transferred between users all without them having to integrate wallets or anything. It can just be like, literally tomorrow. I mean, it wouldn't be tomorrow, but theoretically, Google could say next week or a month or a year from now, just out of the blue, okay, by the way, Connor at Gmail, anyone that has a Gmail account can now send money to each other. Of course, it's money in the form of Bitcoin, right? And that's all there is to it. And then if you can log into your Gmail account, you can access your money. This is now done. This is built, okay? And guess what? It's only available on Bitcoin SV. Are you getting it yet? Are you guys all getting this yet? I mean, how big this is. Now everyone got all upset about the whole money button thing. Money button is just the beginning of this. It's just the beginning. Now I applaud Money Button for being the first to do this, and I applaud them for how they. I thought it was very impressive how they just put this thing up immediately. They developed this. They released the code for free for anyone else to implement. So they did a lot of the legwork. So I thought they got way too much criticism from a lot of people that they did not deserve, which was pretty ridiculous. Okay. Now, I guess Paymail. Any questions? Any questions at all? Or is this making sense? Let's see. No one's bought Satoshi Nakamoto at moneybutton.com yet, so I'm still poor. I'm still poor on Moneybutton, so that's a bummer. But next thing we'll cover here. So I titled this, the last one, The Wisdom of Crowds. Okay, I did that for a few reasons. The most obvious, well, to me the most, so actually here, I will play this video. Give me 1 second. I don't want to play this whole video, and I don't really want to play, I'm not going to play this video, and no point in giving attention to this video. Instead, what I'm going to do is talk about, I guess, generally, so does anyone know, if you don't know what the wisdom of crowds is, like what that means? And I'm sorry. I understand my keyboard and mouse are very loud. I apologize. And it's just the way it works, okay? You're going to have to deal with it. So, if you go to Wikipedia, it's basically that... So I guess I'm just going to read what this says, I'm just going to make sure this isn't okay, so perfect, yeah. So basically the wisdom of the crowd is the idea that the group of individuals can be, you rely on a group of individuals rather than a single expert, okay? I brought this up for a few reasons. So number one, actually the first time that I really started thinking about this in respect to Bitcoin, when it was brought up originally that, what was it, that... pre-consensus. So actually, I'll give you some more insight, okay? So this was pretty much the beginning of the end for Bitcoin Cash, okay? Now, you might be wondering, well, why? Okay, so this post was 11 months ago, okay? This post was, it was the beginning of Bitcoin Cash saying, free markets aren't always good, okay? And I was actually shocked at how this... this started just immediately. Pretty much the first paragraph of this, the first two sentences, pretty much argues for the fact that, this paragraph, that central planning is sometimes good. So for people who, I thought were like really, they understood economics, they understood the value of free markets. Omri Sachet, the lead developer of Bitcoin ABC, who wrote this post, pretty much argues in the first 2 paragraphs here why central planning can be good. Okay. So the reason why I said this is the beginning and the end is precisely because of that. Okay. This was actually a week after Omri met with Craig. So if you remember at the time on Twitter, Craig had lunch with Omri and Joannis Vermeerol. And about a week later, this post comes up. Okay. So it seemed pretty clear that he had decided that he was going to, for example, controlling the protocol shouldn't be left up to the market. It should be left up to people like him. Okay. So this was the end of Bitcoin Cash. Now, this first came up, of course, I mean, half this post is nonsense, really. But it's so ridiculous rereading some of this, actually, in retrospect. But so Omri, wrote this post, and then from then on, it was just like, well, they've now made a reason for centrally planning certain aspects of Bitcoin. Okay. So the first time I ever heard of the wisdom of crowds was when the argument against pre-consensus was essentially that you didn't want people to collude. So if groups colluded, so the idea would be like, if I guess the weight of, so for example, if there's a jar of jelly beans, and people independently try to guess how many jelly beans are in the jar. If they don't talk to each other, and they all make their own independent conclusion, and then you average out the numbers, you get pretty close to the actual result. Okay. But if they all collude beforehand and they say, well, I think it's 70. You think it's 70? No, there's at least 100 in there, right? And then they start talking about what, and then they decide individually, they're way off. Okay. So this is the whole argument against pre-consensus, is that, they're trying to take something that were independent, competitive variables, I guess, and then turning them into something that was agreed on before the fact, right? So this is the first time I ever heard of the wisdom of the crowd. Now, there's another way you could speak to the wisdom of the crowd, right? And that would be generally, if you take like Twitter. So Twitter would be the example of the downsides of the wisdom of the crowd, because if the crowd is fake opinion, essentially, you know what I mean, then you're not actually getting any useful knowledge out of this. So this was my favorite tweet of the week. I'll let you read it, and I'll read it in a second. So Jimmy Nguyen had actually posted, after Via BTC, run by Hypo Yang, announced that he was going to allow mining for BSV. Okay. He said the market had demanded, that people wanted to mine BSV. So Jimmy Nguyen makes a tweet saying, irony, after opposing BSV, Via BTC adds it to mining pool. N-Chain Stefan Matthews. Hypo Yang believes Craig Wright is Satoshi Nakamoto. Hypo told me so explicitly on August 22nd, 2017, a meeting at his office in Shenzhen. So this is what Hypo Yang tweets. No matter CSW is Satoshi or not, I will never admit he is Satoshi. Satoshi is a classic hacker. CSW is just a cracker. We support BSV mining just because business. Stop lying anymore. I mean, come on. Right? Just come on. No matter if he's Satoshi or not, I will never admit he is Satoshi. Remarkable. Okay? So the wisdom of the crowd here is basically, let's see, let's find. All right, this is actually. I'm thinking of the wrong tweet, I guess. But basically, the gist of it is that's the same thing. I guess what I'm trying to get at is like so I have a problem. Like for example, like if you go to the BCom Association, or what is it? Just the Bitcoin Association now? Yeah, Bitcoin Association. They put a tweet out like, let's choose the protocol for MetaNet by Twitter poll, right? So this is a problem because the wisdom of crowds on Twitter. What is the crowd, right? So the crowd, you can't even verify that the crowd are real people. That'd be the first problem. Now, if I had an identity system, for example, then I could do that. Thank you. Someone sent me $10, so thank you very much. If I had a money button identity tied to that, then there's obviously a benefit to doing a poll like this, right? And Money Button did that poll. Remember when they did the poll for the currency symbol? That never really took off, did it? But I thought that was sweet. I thought that was awesome. You had to use Money Button to vote. I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm really despondent about the wisdom of crowds these days. I'm despondent about, I guess, the state of the fact that Bitcoin is associated with the cryptocurrency world is, I guess, what really bothers me, because I hate just about everybody and everything that has to do with the cryptocurrency world. And the good news about that, again, I don't really talk about price or anything. The good thing about that is that we're actually showing signs of being removed from this greater scam of a market. So, I guess for the exception, yesterday this looked a lot better. So actually I can probably pull this up for yesterday, I think, right? I haven't really looked at this. Let's see. There's a way to do it. I don't know. There definitely used to be a way to do it. Oh, historical snapshots. So we can look at yesterday. $2019. Oh, so June 2nd is the last time. Well, all right, whatever. I don't care. I'm going to do this for yesterday. Yesterday was a good example of this, but basically we're setting ourselves apart from the cryptocurrency market, which is a really good thing. Because the cryptocurrency market itself is a scam, and none of these things need to exist. In fact, none of them should exist, really. All right, so I'm this is perfect. I hope this works out. I'm going to change topics here. So I'm going to explain to you why the wisdom of crowds is really bad. And I'm going to talk about... so everyone is like, well, why do you keep talking about Craig Wright, right? So you should just stop talking about Craig Wright. BSV should be on its own. You should stop talking about Craig Wright. And I did that for a very long time. In fact, I avoided bringing him up because it was used as ammo against me. Okay? It was used to discredit you and whatever else. But now that Bitcoin SV is its own thing, we're separated from the rest of the world. I don't care about being attacked by this. So I'm going to get, it looks like, I'm going to get the notorious BCH troll Sken to come on and tell me why Craig Wright is a fraud. And I'm going to show you what the wisdom of crowds produces. Okay? The wisdom of crowds produces this. So hopefully, let's see here. Can you explain, let's see, while I wait for him, can you explain DNS security, or at least state is a concern you're not qualified to talk about it? Does this devalue? So I haven't looked into the Paymail spec to know exactly how much it relies on. Like, let's see what you're saying. So it becomes impossible to see what happens. There's money. It's a good question. I haven't actually looked at the spec to know for certain. Um, Yeah, unfortunately, I'll tell you off the bat, I do not know. I'm not qualified to answer that question. I'm inventing a form of spamming your stream of your money button. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Uh, yes, you are. Whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Thank you very much. That is very kind of you. Thank you. Wow. Okay. Wow. Thank you. Um, what I would like to do would be nice if you could have like something beep each time, you know what I mean? Kind of like OC, but I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to necessarily do this for like donations or anything like that. So, but I do appreciate it a lot. Okay, so anyway, is it simpler? No, so I think the example actually would be that Paymail isn't a. I mean, you got to start thinking about like trade-offs, right? So if you think that, I mean, I guess as a man-in-the-middle attack, I have to understand how vulnerable it is to that. I don't know. Haven't looked into that. Maybe that's a question for Ryan, or definitely someone who develops this. I'd be curious to know. Maybe it's something that could be improved upon in the future. It's a very good question. I'd like to ask them. So I don't think it's a rushed release at all. So I don't know if I'm going to get BCH Troll Sken to come on and talk about Craig Wright. So I had made a deal with him a long time ago that I would let him tell me why Craig Wright was a fraud. And then I would defend against Craig Wright. So I'm going to defend against Craig Wright. I don't know if he's going to do it or not, though. But now, why would you give this guy airtime? Would be the next question. Why would you entertain these people? Well, because I want to actually have someone who knows what they're talking about to come on. So what I hope to do is just offer this to enough people that are against me, and maybe they eventually will, like if I offer this to enough people and then someone says like, hey, I could argue that, and then they see someone else argue it, and maybe they think the person did a bad job, maybe then they'll be like, hey, I could argue that better, and maybe they'll come on, right? Because I just want as many people to try and dismantle the arguments of Bitcoin SV, and then I want to defend the arguments of Bitcoin SV. But I don't know if it's going to happen. Don't know if it's going to happen. This might not happen. Okay, so I'm going to stop. I'm just going to stop this because I have nothing else to say here. I may or may not start a new one here, and we may be the first debate about Craig Wright being a fraud ever. So, debate, I guess, yeah, because all the other sides don't do that. So, we'll see. We'll see if that happens. So, other than that, I'm going to sign this off. I appreciate T38. Very much appreciate very kind generosity here on this stream. And I may or may not come back. We'll see if it happens. So, thank you guys.